A simple family disagreement took terrifying proportions when, before his mother's eyes, a husband raised his hand against his wife. Instead of defending her daughter-in-law, the mother-in-law just sighed, tired. "Go fishing, my son, calms that heart." While the older woman was busy preparing groceries for her son's trip, her daughter-in-law, with a certain look, took her cell phone and dialed a number that would forever change the course of that family. Imagine the scene: Marina's skin burned like embers, Turbo's eyes still fought against the dark spots that danced in the vision, and an insistent buzz hammered her ears. In front of him, Jorge breathed heavily, the nodes of his fingers so tight his fists, his face disfigured by a fury that made him unrecognizable. The silence in the kitchen was so dense that it seemed to suffocate. Across the table, Dona Rima, the mother-in-law, watched everything with a disturbing indifference, as if to watch another episode of a boring soap opera. "Enough. I can't take it anymore," Jorge roared, shaking his head like a wounded animal. "How many times do I have to repeat for you to stop putting your border in my father's life with your ideas?" Marina brought her hand to her face, feeling under her fingers the swelling that was already beginning to form. Everything had happened so fast, so without warning. She had only suggested to her father-in-law, recently diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, to try a diet she had read in a specialized magazine. Jorge had exploded, accusing her of wanting life lessons to her family. And then the unthinkable, the blow. Dona Rima finally moved, dropping a deep sigh. "Go fishing, my son. Cool that head. The two need a while." Jorge nodded, throwing a last look loaded with his wife before leaving the kitchen. The office door knocked hard. "You can't tease it," the mother-in-law murmured, rising slowly. "He is impulsive, just like his father, but passes fast." Marina looked at her incredulously. 4 years of marriage, and never, not once, Jorge had raised his hand. Fights, yes. Disagreements, of course. But violence? Never. And now, the mother-in-law acted as if nothing serious had happened. "He hit me," Marina whispered, still holding her painful face. "Don't overdo it, girl," replied Dona Rima, opening the fridge with an annoying tranquility. "It was just a push unintentionally. Man sometimes doesn't measure the strength. I'll separate some things for him to take 2 days of food, so he comes back calmer." Marina watched, silently, while the mother-in-law arranged methodical on the thermal bag the homemade pastels, the sandwiches, the term with tea. As if nothing had happened. As if your child had not crossed a line that should never be overcome. This was not an accident. And it will happen again. The certainty froze in his veins. With firm steps, Marina left the kitchen, sought the bag and took off her cell phone. He closed in the bathroom, opened the tap and only then allowed the tears to drain, while watching in the mirror the purple that was forming on his face. A few minutes later, with cold water calming his burning skin, he found the number of Elena, his cousin, police delegate. "Hello, Marie? All good?" The family voice sounded on the other end of the line. Marina swallowed her cry, forcing the words to come out clear, despite the trembling lips. "I need you. Jorge just hit me on his face with his fist." A heavy silence took over the call. "Are you safe now?" The question came in a professional, cold tone. "Yes. He's preparing to go fishing. The mother-in-law is helping, as if nothing had happened. Photograph the injured already. And send me. Then write it all down, time, what happened before, if there have been threats, every detail you remember. Understanding." Marina took a deep breath. "And now, act normal. Don't let anything show. I call in half an hour." Turning off, Marina registered the wound at different angles, noted each word exchanged, every gesture, and sent everything to Elena. When he returned to the kitchen, Dona Rima had already finished the preparations. Jorge was at the door, stirring nervously in the keys of the car. "I'm leaving," he said, without looking at her. "I'll be back Sunday night." "Of course, my son," he smiled his mother-in-law, handing his bag. "Rest, fish with friends and don't worry about anything. Everything will straighten up." Jorge left without a word, avoiding his wife's gaze. "Great," said Dona Rima, turning to Marina. "Now, put ice on this face and let's combine one thing, no longer fill Jorge with your advice." They have their relationship, you don't have to get in. Marina nodded in silence, but inside something turned a cold, relentless determination. 40 minutes later, when Jorge should already be on his way to the reservoir, the phone rang. It was Elena. It's done, the cousin announced. He will be intercepted at a 15-kilometer PRF post by the Piatnitsko highway. A team is ready with the complaint and its testimony. They will check if it is drunk and then will arrest it by bodily injury. Marina felt her chest squeeze, but her voice did not tremble. I'm not going back. It is not necessary. I'll be there in an hour. We need to record the injuries and formalize everything. When the bell rang an hour and a half later, Donna Rimmer, absorbed in her soap opera in the room, raised her eyebrows, surprised. Who will it be? Marina went to open. At the door, Elena, in civilian clothes, and 2 uniformed police. Good afternoon, said Elena, formal. I'm the Merzina delegate. We received a complaint of domestic violence at this address. What is happening? Donna Rimmer appeared in the hallway, the look jumping between her daughter-in-law and the police, confused. His son, Jorge Vladimirovich Demidov, was arrested under suspicion of assault to his wife, said Elena, serena. We came to the usual procedures. This is a mistake. He protested his mother-in-law, shaking hands. Jorge never. Marina, what did you do? I told the truth, she said calmly, moving away to let the police come in. May your son hit me on his face, and you suggested that he would fish to calm down. How do you dare? Shouted Donna Rimmer, her eyes full of tears of anger. After all we did for you. It was just a push, he didn't want to. Lady fell, Elena cut firmly. Watch out for what you say in front of witnesses. This can be interpreted as an attempt to intimidate the victim. Please accompany us to the room. We need to draw up the police report and gather testimonials. The following hours were like a surreal nightmare for Marina. Hematoma photographs, detailed report of the facts, inspection of the kitchen where everything had happened. Donna Rimmer, pale of fury and fear, refused to believe that her son was arrested, who would face real consequences. When the police finally went, leaving only one subpoena to attend the police station the next day, the mother-in-law collapsed in a chair, sobbing. You destroyed everything. He whimpered, in tears. Marina looked at her without mercy. No. You allowed this to happen. Family? Marina released a dry, almost imperceptible laugh. Gogar loves you. Did everything for you. A single mistake, and you already call the police. No, Rimmer Arkadievna. The family was destroyed the moment Georgi decided he had the right to raise his hand against me. And you, when you decided it was normal. What am I going to do now? The voice of his mother-in-law broke, his eyes flooded with helpless tears. How are we going to live? They won't. Marina closed the zipper of the sports bag, where she packaged her things with precise, almost surgical movements. I go to my parents' house. Tomorrow I'll be back for the rest. As for Georgie, any communication will be through my lawyer. You're abandoning it for a single mistake. The accusation came out as a lament. I love a guilt that Rimmer Arkadievna still couldn't assume. That was not a mistake, Marina turned, the cold eyes like seasoned steel. It was a crime. And if you really loved your son, they would not justify you. Help him understand that he has done something irreparable. That there is no excuse for violence. Rimmer Arkadievna looked at her as if she first saw Marina. Not the daughter-in-law that he had imagined, but a woman with an upright spine, a firm voice and a determination that would not bend. I always knew you weren't worthy of my Gog, he murmured, more to himself than to Marina. I always felt it. Maybe you were right. Marina adjusted the bag of her bag on her shoulder without a shred of bitterness. Goodbye. Asterisk. A month later, the verdict fell. Georgie received a suspended sentence, conditioned to impulse control therapy. The messages started to arrive: apologies, promises, oaths that never again. Marina did not answer. The divorce was finalized in 3 months. She didn't complain about goods, she didn't want anything from that past where violence was disguised as love or momentary weakness. 6 months later, a publisher opened in the same medical newspaper whose report she had tried to show Rimmer Arkadievna years earlier. The work absorbed her. New friends, new projects. And then, in the second year after the divorce, Artem appeared, a high cardiologist, calm voice and soft smile, who reached the newsroom with a series proposal on cardiovascular disease prevention. They approached slowly. Marina was slow to tell about the previous marriage, about the distrust she now carried as a second skin. But when he finally did it, Artem heard in silence, the serious eyes, before saying, "I work in a hospital, Marina. I see women who return to the attackers because they are afraid or not believe they deserve something better. You were stronger. And that." He shook his head, admired. "That's courage." They married a year later, in an intimate ceremony, only the closest. Aliona, her sister, was a lady of honor. While Artem walked away to greet his parents, Aliona hugged Marina and whispered, "I am proud of you, little sister. Do you know what happened to Georgie?" "No," Marina shook her head. "I didn't follow." He fulfilled the therapy the court determined. Then he created a support group for men with a history of domestic violence. It helps them see the problem and change. He came to the police station last week, proposing partnership. Marina looked at the ring on her finger, the light dancing over the gold. "So it wasn't in vain," he murmured. "Nothing is in vain," Aliona smiled, indicating with her head, which came back with 2 cups of champagne. "Sometimes a trip that doesn't happen changes everything. Not only for you." Marina stared at her husband, feeling the warmth of the contentment spread through the chest. "Yes, sometimes life deviates the way we imagined and leads us to a better place." 2 years later, in the hallway of a mall, Marina came across Rimma Arkadievna. The former sale had aged, but kept the upper posture, the firm chin. Seeing her with her young daughter in her arms, he hesitated for a second before approaching. "Hello, Marina." "Hello, Rimma Arkadievna. Your daughter is beautiful." The woman's eyes shone genuine. "What is it called?" "Sophia." "A beautiful name. A break. Are you happy?" "Much," Marina answered without hesitation. Rimma Arkadievna lowered her eyes, as if she gathered forces. "I wanted to apologize. For that day. Every day before, when I closed my eyes to George's aggressiveness. Should not have justified you." Marina studied that face marked by time and remorse. He found no hatred, just an old sadness that no longer hurt. "I forgave her a long time ago," he said softly. "And I'm glad Georgie found his way." "Yes," Rimma Arkadievna nodded. "I'm proud of him. Too bad it was necessary to get here. At turn. These people need to fall to learn to get up." Marina shook her daughter, who was already dozing off in her arms. "I need to go. Take care. You too, Marinochka." The former Height's eyes accompanied her for a moment. "You too." Observing Rimma Arkadievna walking away, Marina reflected on how life weaves her hair. The deepest wounds are sometimes the ones that lead us to light. A cancelled trip to fishing. A man who learned to be better. A woman who discovered her own strength. And a daughter, sleeping in her arms, whose future would be written with very different paint.